Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Drone Owners Network. I'm your host, Curtis. Joining me today, Abby Lyle. Also, Tommy Polo's here with the latest in drone news. We got a great show lined up for you. A former NASA astronaut who's also climbed Mount Everest and is the author of The Sky Below and now has his own tech startup company, Fluidity. Dr. Scott Parazynski joins us live next.
Charge your batteries, lock in those props, and check that airspace. Join us live. This is the Drone Owners Network.
Boom! We are back. Yeah, we're live once again. I just love that hit on that ending of that song. That's so freaking cool. So I always have to do that. So anyway, welcome back, everybody. As you probably noticed when I posted it in the various Facebook groups, I'm having a bit of a windstorm going on here. So if we go offline and the power comes back on within 15 minutes or so, we'll jump back on and try to continue the interview and continue what we're doing. If not, I've already spoken with Scott and we'll reschedule this for next weekend when we have a little bit better weather. But hopefully we don't go offline. Let me jump over here, check, see who's in our group already. Let's see. Telly Scott. Telly's in the house. Doug, he was born ready. Lauren's here. Hey, all. So we'll get a few more people in here. We got a few people watching so far. A couple of things I want to point out real quick. A little programming note. Next week, and I'm not sure exactly what time, and I've got to get with the guys and find out specifically, but Coast to Coast Drones has invited Tommy, myself, and Randy over there to go hang out with those folks, and we really appreciate them inviting us over. That was a really cool thing for them to do. We're going to be on
time.
there.
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah, Ron and Bill, and I got to get the Bill names right because there's two Bills. I hope
Bill.
Yeah,
Bill squared.
Bill squared.
Will and Bill.
Yeah, Ron and Bill squared. Yeah, I like that. We'll have to use that. But anyway, that's I put a link to their show or their channel in the description below. So you guys be sure and check that out. Let's see. Anything else I want to mention here? Let's see. Be sure and subscribe. There's a little graphic for our little subscribe button. I made that. It's just too much fun. And if you guys want to reach us and you have any questions or anything and something you want us to cover, you can reach us at droneownersnetworklive@gmail.com. That's droneownersnetworklive@gmail.com. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the very talented and very busy. Well, actually, let's do this first. Hang on one second. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tommy Polo with the news.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tommy Polo here with the Drone Owners Network live news. We got a few stories in here for you tonight. The first one comes from down under in Australia. And the way I read it started off as, from the distance comes a high-pitched whining noise. It sounds horrible, like a giant mosquito or a herd of angry mosquitoes in a wind tunnel. But it is, in fact, it turns out to be a flying burrito. And it's flying courtesy of Wing's ambitious drone delivery program that's starting up down in Australia. Google and Alphabet Project Wing has been given a green light to turn its drone delivery trials in Canberra, Australia into a fully fledged service that's open to the public, which is it's raining burritos, bread, and paracetamol, if you know what that is.
What
medication.
Is
that? They're dropping medications.
Ibuprofen.
Yes. Something like that. But what started as a distant dream in 2012 down under is becoming a reality. Customers in eligible homes in the Canberra suburbs, of Crace, Palmerston, and Franklin will be among the first to be able to order products from a local business and have them delivered out of the air. Wing customers can order a range of items such as fresh fruit, hot coffee. I don't know how they're going to do that. Over the counter, simple pharmacy items, as Abby said, like ibuprofen, stuff like that, all through a mobile app that goes to be delivered directly to their homes in a matter of minutes. They're claiming. Mm-hmm. This sounds, in my opinion, with this story, this sounds pretty neat. It's opening. It's commercializing. It's opening. I know I've touched on delivery things before, but Now this is like, okay, UPS is doing it with medical supplies and this and that. Now we're doing burritos. Like, I want to know when my car parts are going to get delivered to my driveway.
As hard as you want, I don't think they're going to do beer deliveries.
No, probably not. Well, the weight distribute, you would need what, at least a 600 for a 12-pack.
Yeah, work out the technical stuff, not the legalities, right?
Yeah, no, the hell with that. We don't worry about that.
No.
But my next story, that'll be neat. I'm curious to see how that's going to. I want to see what's going to happen in the States. That'll be the fun part, to see what we get away with. But my next story hits a little closer to home. CISA, which is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, their assistant director for infrastructure security, Brian Harrell, wants stakeholders at the industry and community levels to be prepared for, among other critical threats, be prepared for potential attacks from above. Now, when I started reading this article, I said, whoa, what's going on here? But hear me out. There's a lot of this is quote directly from him. Brian Harrell is quoted saying, "This is not an emerging threat. This was emerging 5 years ago. This is here and it is now." As CISA, that was end quote. As CISA focuses on counter UAS mission, the agency also must provide these recommendations to the private sector to prepare critical infrastructure. This all sounds kind of confusing, but what they're saying is the private industry does not own Harrell's quote. Private industry does not own airspace above generation facilities, of transmission substations, of water plants, big critical, in-depth stuff for technology that feeds all the homes that we live in, water supply, electrical supply, all that stuff. He's quoted saying, "If I know something, you all should know something as well." He's worried about these. You got a Chinese-made drone, foreign made. Let's just say foreign made. You got a foreign made drone, and we're out here taking pictures. We're taking pictures of, your families, this, that, and the other thing. I think what he's mainly worried about is taking pictures of, say you're out in I don't know, Washington. You get the monuments, you get sports stadiums, you get big critical infrastructure type things that could be looked at, spied upon by somebody else, monitoring either what the drone is seeing at the moment, monitoring the systems that we're using to fly them, the clear skies, the iPads, all that other kind of stuff. So they had a recent get together. I want to call it a trade show. I can't remember what technically called it. They had a big function. They had a convention, but he stepped up and spoke about this, and he was pretty animated. He seemed pretty serious about all this stuff, and I don't know what's going to come of it. I don't know how we could prepare. I don't know what he wants us to do, but I think if we keep our eyes and ears open, we're going to see more and more of this stuff coming out. Whereas with everything, I mean, you have a good, you have a bad. It's all it's all balanced. I don't know. It was an interesting story, but now I kind of lost my train of thought with it. I'm sorry. I had more on here on it, but okay, we're going to move on to the next one, because the next one has to do with FLIR.
Oh, that one didn't?
Well, I'm sure that one did. I mean, that it all kind of ties in together. Every time you put the thing in the air, I think what the assistant director, Brian Harrell's worried about is just that we're out here just doing whatever we want. We don't care. It's like, take a picture of this, take a picture of that, throw it up to the moon, get as high as you can, break laws, this, that, and the other thing. All the while, it's a camera. Cameras are monitored. Anytime there's a camera, if it's hooked, especially if it's hooked to the internet, the entire internet is hooked to some giant thing somewhere where everybody can see it. So it's we need to just protect ourselves and our loved ones and that kind of stuff. But anyway, there was a pretty significant day recently for everyone at Drone Base. FLIR Systems has made a strategic investment in Drone Base, which establishes FLIR as the exclusive provider of thermal imaging technology for Drone Base's inspection services and training partners. So they're exclusive now. And this strategic investment will allow FLIR and Drone Base to develop specialized training for Drone Base pilots through the FLIR Infrared Training Center, or ITC they're calling it, creating a group of thermal trained pilots within Drone Base's pilot network, which is interesting because while I was going through Facebook the other day, I saw a guy standing, it was Indeed, guy standing there holding his certificate that he just got trained. I've only read this article 2 days ago. It came out, but this guy's he's already trained. He's got a certificate. But together with FLIR, DroneBase will provide training for the pilot network through the FLIR ITC all over the country. And while they're still straightening out the details, they're starting in the second half of 2019. You'll be trained by their professional thermographers of FLIR's ITC staff, which will expand your skills and open the door for specialized flights. And this partnership enables FLIR and DroneBase to bring thermal drone data to your enterprise in national and a global scale with standard pricing and reliable capture. Because we all know that FLIR, for thermal imaging, FLIR's number one. At least that's how I understand it. But that being said, there was one quick story about somebody's in trouble for what was it? A rapper tragically was recently killed. Nipsey Hussle, he went by, and there's a lot. The funeral procession was huge. It was gigantic. There were 3 drones in the air throughout almost the whole thing, over people's heads, no more than 20, 30 feet off the ground. So be prepared for repercussions from that. I'm sure it's not going to be all that great because obviously we know it's against the law. And other than that, I have a quick FPV verb that the MultiGP is going to China soon. So get ready for all the racing, all the good times, and all the fun stuff that comes with that. And with that, Curtis, I'm going to turn it back to you so we can get on with our awesome guest, Scott. That's Tommy Polo with the Drone Owners Network News. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Tommy. We appreciate that. It's going to China, right? It's kind of like it's like it circles back around. I mean, it started there. Okay. Anyway, so
it does. It always did.
I want to be.
It always did.
I specifically wrote this down because I wanted to make sure that I got all this in. This is a lot, but I want to introduce our special guest today. But I had to write it all down because I didn't want to miss anything. So, former NASA astronaut who has traveled more than 23 million miles in space over his 17-year career. He's flown 5 missions, conducted 7 spacewalks, including one of the most dangerous spacewalks to date. He's also climbed Mount Everest twice, summited once, an injury from the first time. He's become the only person to fly in space and reach the mountain summit. He's the author of The Sky Below, which is a cool name for a book, I got to tell you. And now has his own tech startup company, Fluidity. So if you would, please join me and welcome Mr. Scott Parazynski. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey. All right. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be part of this.
Well, we're excited. I mean, we've been kind of talking about this for the last couple of weeks because we knew this was coming up. We've been talking with all of your assistants and stuff, and we're really excited about you being here. But before we kind of get into Fluidity, which is the main reason that we're here and the main reason that most everybody else is kind of coming on board, I got a couple of geeky questions I got to ask. And if they sound stupid to everybody, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to ask. So when you're in space and you're in the spacesuit and the sun is, say, for instance, behind you or in front of you or wherever it is, can you feel the heat from the sun versus the cold side where you're, facing out to space? I mean, is that, or is the spacesuit so insulated you just don't feel anything?
No, actually, Curtis, that's a fantastic question. And in fact, yes, you can. You can feel the solar illumination really, really well. And it's really intense if you're on a shiny module where the heat is reflected onto your spacesuit and or your gloves. And in fact, on one of my spacewalks, I ended up having to go into the shadow of the space station just to cool off a little bit. It was that intense. Similarly, in an orbital night in the shadow of Earth, it can be 200 degrees below zero, and you can get bone-chillingly cold as well.
Wow.
Ouch.
So, yeah, no, for a layman who really, I mean, I follow what happens, in the news and stuff and the guys going up into space, but, nobody never really talks about it from a first-person view of this is what I felt while I was up there. So I was just kind of curious about that. The other question I'm going to ask you, and I'm not even sure how I should phrase this correctly. We kind of touched on it a little bit. You've achieved a lot of things in your life, a lot of things that most people, I mean, we both said coffee's a great great thing to use. But do you get up in the morning and say, I'm going to accomplish this, 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 and this, or how did you even go about accomplishing all this stuff? Was it? I'm going to turn it over to you and kind of let you kind of grab it and go with it.
Well, first off, thank you so much for the kind words. But I guess my approach to life is just to live it to the fullest. Anything that you really want to do, you got to put in all of your energy, all of your passion towards it. And so I guess the other thing that I sort of picked up as a Boy Scout, believe it or not, was setting a lofty goal, but then having the wherewithal to kind of dissect it into manageable, achievable goals along the way. And so in Boy Scouts, that meant, the next merit badge and the next merit badge, and then there'd be another rank. It's very easy to get discouraged in the pursuit of a faraway goal, like becoming an Eagle Scout, or maybe joining the ranks of NASA. So I just found ways to not get discouraged, and I kept working. Yeah, well, yeah, it's just you got to keep moving, and if it's something that you really want to do, you got to go for it with everything you got, and that's what I'm doing now. Keep on doing it. That's
one of the things I was going to add that into the intro, was you're an Eagle Scout as well, but I thought, but at the same time, that's really, really cool. So we're here to talk about the FT Aviator today, and we're all kind of excited about it. Myself, and I'm going to give it just a prime example of one of the reasons I'm excited about it. Not so much for me, but I have a very good friend of mine up here at stationed at Fort Lewis. Well, he's retired now, but he was at Fort Lewis. Went over to Afghanistan. He had a little incident with an IED. He didn't lose a limb, but he lost some of the use of his left arm. He can, and he loves to fly. He has a Mavic. He can grip the controller with his left hand, but it's, as far as moving the sticks around, it's like an on-off switch for him. It's either full forward or full back. There's no finite control for him. So when I first heard about Fluidity and started discussing it with him, he's like, we got to take a look at this, because he loves to fly, and even in the limited amount of flying he can do. So I know there's a lot of people out there going, well, this is not for me, and I came up from the Xbox generation, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of people that this will appeal to. After I brought this up with my team, Stig, one of our staff here at the Drone Owners Network Live, he pointed out a couple of guys that are in Norway that have this similar situation. So, Scott, I think you're right on key and right on target for something that you're doing that's going to be really, really good and really, really helpful in expanding and helping out the community. So let's back up just a little bit. Let's talk about where you got the idea, and let's talk about how you decided to start a company.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that lead-in, Curtis. Actually, it started as an ambition to revolutionize surgical robotics. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Da Vinci surgical robot, but it's this ungainly beast that you got to put in all your fingers into this controller. You're in a wraparound kind of theater. You take off your shoes, and your feet are on pedals, and you're just trying to move an instrument inside the body. Your patient's 10 or 15 feet away. Really difficult to learn to do. And then if you don't do it all the time, just like pilot proficiency, you fall off of that curve, and you are no longer safe to perform that procedure. Your outcomes are a lot less successful. It takes longer. It's just a bad thing. And so when I set out to basically reinvent mobility through three-dimensional space, which is the underpinning of Fluidity technologies in our FT Aviator, I was really thinking about how can we teleoperate here in Houston and help a patient in sub-Saharan Africa. That's my long-term goal. But I'm a pilot. I love flying. Everything about aviation. I was an early adopter in drones as well, not as early as you. I started with a Phantom 2, but some assembly required, as we all know.
Oh yeah.
And so I just started looking at the markets that would be applicable to our technology, my inventions, and drone flight just really stepped out as a realm where there's really not been any innovation in control systems since the 1930s, when we first started flying radio-controlled aircraft. They don't look too much dissimilar to your Xbox controller or your typical drone flight controller today. Two sticks that you can master, and obviously all of you guys are master pilots, and that's wonderful, and you can do amazing things. And I'm in awe of drone racers in particular. What the magic that those guys and girls can do is just crazy. I mean, it's phenomenal. But I'm first and foremost an aviator. I've flown everything from Cessna 150s to jet aircraft to spacecraft to robotic arms and virtual reality simulators and drones. And I love the experience of flying. And this to me is more, it's just not as intuitive. It's not the way our mind is mapped to translating to an aircraft or a point of reference out in the sky. So what I wanted to do is, create a single-handed control interface. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that I've got a virtual point of reference, my thumb tip. So anything that happens with my thumb tip is going to happen directly with my drone. So as I lift up my thumb, I'm going to ascend. As I press down, I'll descend, go forwards, backwards, left, right, and I can yaw. And so within a few seconds, flight almost becomes subconscious. And I'm like, Luke Skywalker shooting down the Death Star. That's kind of the flying a drone like a fighter pilot, but with precision and with tactile feedback. And so I think what our technology will allow is for people who don't have the hundreds or thousands of hours that you guys do to use these assets in really powerful ways. And
yeah, may I interrupt you? Because I it's interesting. I was obviously, reading up and listening to a lot of stuff, and the idea of correcting inadvertent motion is so big, because I do a lot of training, and people don't realize that they're doing it. Oh, the drone's twisting. Why is it turning in the air? Why am I going off to the left? I didn't do that. It's the wind. And so you've got pilot error, or they don't want to accept that that they're making a mistake. And you're trying to tell them that, yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And it's not intuitive. And I think, you're talking expansive possibilities with what you're making right now, starting with just training people, going on to robotics for, medical emergencies. And I mean, it really spreads the gamut, really, everything that you can do with what you have already produced. But I love this idea of being able to train people so that they know that it's not the drone, it's just natural.
Pilots love to blame their aircraft or the atmospheric conditions, but no, it's 90% of the time it's us.
That's true. Yeah. Even in flight, proper flight, seat of us attached to the airplane flight, it's the same way.
That's right. Yeah, and so and it's a great point. So cross coupling is that unintended motion. So, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, but as you go command and up with your left thumb or your pinched grip here, it's not uncommon for your hand to kind of drift a little bit to the left and induce a left yaw, or as you're going forward with the other thumb to actually drift a little bit to the right. And so as you go forward, you get a little bit of a rightward drift. That's cross coupling. It's bad. It's unfortunately the pilot's fault. But with tools like the FT Aviator, we actually give you a sense of every time you're inputting a command in all 4 degrees of command for a drone, the up, down, left, right, forwards, backwards, and then the yaw. You know exactly when you're inputting a command and when you're back at neutral. And so I don't ever have to look down at my hand to know when I'm issuing a command. I know it instantly through what I feel in my hand. And so it gives me freedom. It gives me confidence to go into dynamic, unscripted, challenging flight environments. So what I'm really excited about is, not only for hobbyists who want to, get out and enjoy and capture wonderful immersive imagery. I'm really excited about drones for public safety, aviation, to be able to have a drone in every squad car, every fire rig, every insurance adjuster's car. Everybody ought to be using these tools. And if we can reduce the barriers to entry, the difficulty of training, I think we'll do a lot of good.
That's very true.
Yeah, I agree.
That might lead us to UTAC, actually, what you just kind of talked about there, Scott. A very good friend of ours and a friend of yours, Mr. Romeo Dersher, was on a couple of weeks ago, and he's been a big fan of our show for a while, and we love having that guy around. The guy is just amazing stories of stuff that he's done, much like yourself. But both of you guys recently attended UTAC. Would you like to talk about your experience there? And while you're talking, I'm going to, just so everybody at home knows, I'm going to be playing some slideshows from UTAC, but Scott won't be able to see these. I'm sure he's seen them before, and if I need to, I can kind of describe them. But basically, they're just photos of Scott and Romeo and some of the environment of UTAC. So if you can kind of describe first what UTAC was and what it meant to you and how you kind of see Fluidity fitting into that atmosphere, that would be awesome.
Oh, thank you. No, it was a wonderful experience, incredibly well run by Fly Motion. It was at an amazing facility just south of Atlanta with all sorts of different Armageddon scenarios around this facility. So partially collapsed buildings, flooded buildings. There's an active shooter simulation, and then a bunch of pioneers in public safety aviation. So these are early adopters, and I love early adopters, people that are kind of pressing the boundaries of what's possible in technology. So these are folks that are looking for new technologies to allow them to do their jobs better. So these are early adopters, drone pilots in firehouses and in police stations and within the military. And it was really exciting to be in this environment, to see these different scenarios play out, to interact with different types of public safety aviators. Some of them were very seasoned pilots. Some of them were hobbyists who had brought their hobby to work, and now we're using them, for their SWAT team back home. Or others were brand new pilots and were looking to bring advanced technology back home to their firehouse or whatever. So it was a kind of an inaugural session for UTAC, but I think it's going to grow by leaps and bounds. And it's really a wonderful way to share best practices. We don't really know what the best practices are yet because it's such a kind of a new field. Romeo Dersher has kind of been at the forefront of public safety aviation, but that's maybe 3 or 4 years. It's still a very nascent field, and so getting together people that really want to do their jobs better through the use of drones, I think it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, some of the videos that I've watched online, and because of copyright reasons, we're not allowed to share them here. The stuff that I just showed was stuff that Romeo had taken, or a friend of Romeo's, and gave us permission to use. But very real world shooter situation that they had, where they were blowing out doors on the building and actively entering, and somebody coming outside and firing just willy-nilly, that something very real world, and nobody was, from what I understand, nobody was prepared for what was going to happen. It just happened, and all of a sudden everybody kind of jumped into action and started doing their jobs. Drones got in the air and were able to document things, and some of the stuff that Abby does, and can probably maybe address this a little bit, and we're kind of getting off Fluidity just for a second here, sorry about that, but some of the mapping of crime scenes and stuff is really, really cool. But let's get back to Fluidity. Were you just showing off the technology there, or were you trying to incorporate it into what they were doing, or?
Yeah, so this is our first experience, with the community. So we brought our technology out to demonstrate, and we had most of the participants get some stick time with our pre-production prototypes. Now we're actually in production, so it's we're gearing up for sales. But really, it was a two-way street. I wanted to get FaceTime with public safety aviators who are excited about using this technology. What are their unmet needs? How can we best support them? So it was a learning experience for me, and I hope that they enjoyed and got a lot out of demonstrating with the aviator as well. But my real passion is to help change the world through these kinds of technologies. And I think, as I said earlier, I don't think it should be two people in the firehouse or two people in the police department who are the Part 107 certificated pilots, the only people that can go out and fly. You lose those golden minutes at the beginning of an incident, say a school shooting. You've got to have that information right now. And so I think the first responder, the first people on the scene, rather than punch through the door and directly go into harm's way, use these tools, save lives. And so that's why I'm really passionate about public safety aviation, why I wanted to be at UTAC. And
there is
we can help them.
Again, this is off Fluidity, but there is a program, and I know one of the gentlemen that's involved with it, where in school situations, and this is not every school, but they're testing out some schools where a situation happens where there's not only a lockdown instantly, but drones are automatically put into the air. And they're unmanned drones, and literally unmanned drones. There's not somebody at the helm. The drone is pre-programmed to go into the air and start documentation immediately, sending signals to the police and the fire department, depending on the particular situation. So let me jump over to the chat group for just a second here and see what guys are saying. And I'm already seeing some people going, is there going to be a discount code? People are interested in this. Is there going to be a discount code? Yeah. When's it shipping? What can we expect here? And for the record, by the way, I don't have one. I've never experienced one. I will say that for a little bit of programming notes here that some of the staff at Drone Owners Network Live are going to be meeting up with Scott in Houston on the 20th, and they are going to be flying. So James Jackson will be there, Randy Foster will be there, Mark Mulkey will be there. They're going to be filming it, and then they're going to be coming back and doing a later show with us, and we will be talking about what their real world experiences are. I have no particular experience with it at all, other than I used to have a joystick on a jet game at one point in time, so I can only imagine what it was like, and that was a lot of fun.
So what I think is lovely, Scott, is that you don't have this huge ego attached to your absolutely amazing career. And I think that serves you very well. My father was a very good friend of Pete Conrad, and Pete would always say that my name may get me through some doors, but I better know what I'm talking about to stay in the room. And I think that's true of you. And I think that it obviously everybody's starting to ask, what's the discount code? When are they shipping? And, we've had some other drones out there that haven't quite been completed yet, and people are getting a little upset that they've invested. And I think the wonderful thing to see with you is that you don't have this ego attached, that you really want to help people, and I think that shines through. And I'm sure that the answer is yes, there's going to be a code and they'll be shipping. I know you say Q2, but it always takes a little bit longer when you're in this kind of production process. But I think that should give everybody the confidence that Scott is for real. And I think that's huge. Just it radiates out of the computer waves.
The interwebs.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for mentioning my name in the same sentence as Pete Conrad, because he was one of the greatest. Apollo 12 moonwalker, Skylab, and just one of the
all-around
nicest,
wonderful guy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. God rest his soul. He passed a number of years ago, as you know. But well, thank you for that. And we, as a tech startup company, we know all about Lily Robotics. It's a name that shouldn't be ever mentioned in the context of drones, but obviously people were badly burnt, including two of my board members. So they're passionate about drones, but and they certainly believe in what we're doing and know that what we're doing is extremely disruptive and that we're about to deliver. Before I get to the discount code, we will be continuing to offer our product at deep discount, I assure you. But we're actually in a really exciting phase right now. So we have the first 15 units off of the assembly line. These are our first production units. And for me, as an old NASA guy, quality is paramount. These are serious devices. The FT Aviator is a premium piece of electronics gear. A drone is something that, if not used properly, can hurt people, can hurt property. And so we are testing exhaustively. We're making sure that we identify as many software bugs as might exist. So we're actually this upcoming week, I'll be in Southern California, flying everything from the Mavic Air to the Matrice 600 with our controller, with iOS and Android, and we're going to take you to every corner case we can think of, and we're going to try and find every and make sure that we have solutions.
Scott, you might want to back up. Scott, you might want to back up just a second. You just froze up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
So the last three sentences, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Sorry, it sounds like a terrible telephone commercial. But
yes.
Yeah, so this upcoming week, I'll be in Southern California, flying everything from the Mavic Air to the M600 with Android and iOS phones. We're going to fly every corner case we can think of, and make sure that we check off every box, every bit of functionality that we expect out of our technology. And we're going to ship quality. And so we expect in the next short while, I can't give a precise date. It certainly will be in Q2, but hopefully quite soon we'll be able to ship our first units. And we'll be flying next weekend with your crew here in Houston. I'm really excited about that as well.
Randy just sent me a message that says, we're excited to meet up with Scott for his hands-on experience. I've personally been looking forward to this for a long, long time. We have been talking about this for a while. But yeah, Randy and James and Mark are already, they're just chomping at the bit. Mark's going to be driving 2 hours down to Houston just to get down there and try this thing out. So you got a team of guys that are really, really well-versed in drones, and they're really wanting to put this thing through their own particular paces. So they're going to come prepared.
That'll be exciting. I'm thrilled to meet those guys and to get them on the controls and get their feedback. But yeah, so we're also next week up in Spokane, Washington. Other members of my team will be doing life cycle testing, destructive testing, work the mechanicals to failure, those kinds of important critical steps. So we're going to be shipping a high quality product, as you expect. We're really excited for those first pilots to experience our technology. The MSRP will be $449, but it is available for pre-sale right now for $299, and we'll continue that price through at least our first ship date, and then we'll be obviously increasing our price to our MSRP. So I encourage folks to log on to fluidity.tech, where you can navigate to our Shopify site and purchase the product. And we also have Pelican case and other kind of peripherals that you might want to consider.
So Scott, I have to ask you a question. I know you've got to walk before you run, but we use, with our very, very careful and delicate work, we do use the Crystal Sky, and I know it's not compatible with the Crystal Sky right now. Is that something that you're looking to do in the future?
Absolutely. It's the challenge is we have our own app that we need to run, and Crystal Sky, of course, has its own operating system on an Android base. So I think that in the next iteration of Crystal Sky, we'll be able to run alongside it. The currently existing Crystal Sky monitors, it doesn't appear we have a clear pathway to get to, but we're looking at some other solutions as well. It's very important to be able to support Crystal Sky pilots as well.
Scott, yeah, that's awesome.
We have a question in the chat group over here. Lauren Donner has a question, and she's passionately asking, Scott, I presented info on your product in her group. The biggest feedback I got was that the controller looked like it would require two hands, one to hold the base and one to use, and the other to use the controller. Can you address that?
Absolutely. So what we're trying to do is put flight control in one hand. So when you're flying a traditional controller, you're using both hands, and it's an iterative, complex, iterative process.
The left hand doesn't always know what the right hand's doing.
Exactly. Even though it's connected to the same brain, it doesn't always map that way. And so what we've done with our controllers, we put all the flight control into your dominant hand, right or left-handed, doesn't matter. And then you put the camera controls in your non-dominant hand. So on the base unit, we can actually control the camera tilt, which is geometrically mapped to the camera, which is it's helpful to me, at least. You guys probably are pros at this, but I always forget which way is tilt down and which way is tilt up. So So simple things, simple, but we can also adjust on the fly the responsiveness of the stick through a rotary here. We have other access to camera features, shutter speed, exposure compensation, and so on. So rather than dive multiple layers deep into an app to adjust your camera, we can do it right here on the fly as you're continuing to get out to your scene. So getting back to your question, all the primary flight controls are with our single hand here. And all I'm really thinking about subconsciously is my thumb tip is the nose of my drone. And so whatever happens with my thumb tip, that's what's going to happen to my drone. If I want, however, though, this one actually is a pre-production version, but there is actually a 1/4-20. So you can mount this on a tripod. You can mount it in a mobile control vehicle if you're flying some type of an enterprise mission. Lots of different. You could mount it to a lawn chair if you wanted.
That's actually, I think now that I've thought about it for a while, that's kind of the way I would use it. And I have use of both of my hands, but I would probably put it on a tripod. I just think I would be more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, there won't be one size fits all. And maybe it's just, I'm so close to the development of it. I've gotten really used to having this out in front of me like this. And boy, it is, I'm dialed in and I can put a drone exactly where I want it. The other thing that I did want to make mention of, and I don't think I mentioned it in the lead in, but there's actually a situational awareness display up here. So we always know the azimuth or position in the sky where my drone is. So God forbid you lose sight of it. It has happened to me, I admit. You can kind of point to it. Okay, there's I think I can sort of see my drone. Which way is it pointing? Then I've got a relative yaw indicator in here. So I know how to straighten it out and then pull it back home instead of hitting the panic return to home button. So that's just kind of another cool feature that we built in for our pilots.
That's pretty impressive. I like that. Now I got to know, is it going to talk to FreeSky? What FPV receivers are we going to see with this thing?
Well, so I'd love to talk to you more about that. Absolutely. But as a young tech startup, you got to focus. We want to go for the largest amount of pilot community that we can go for to start. And so we're able to support drone pilots using DJI from Mavic Air to M600, and we're going to continue to evolve the drones as well as the ancillary tools that we like to fly with. So we'd love at some point to be able to integrate with Moverio and other Crystal Sky, as you mentioned.
Speaking of FPV,
so can I ask Scott? Sorry, I was just going to ask what the 6 degrees. It said 6 degrees of freedom, and I was wondering, does that relate to some of the things that you can do on the controller, or was that a
6 axis?
Yeah, so it is 6, basically 6 axes of control are available, not in this particular product, because in an enterprise or kind of consumer drone flight, we don't roll inverted, we don't pitch inverted, but we can, obviously you guys are also drone racers, so you guys do all sorts of crazy Hayaka maneuvers that you wouldn't do with your typical Mavic 2 or what have you. But we do have IP that allows us to have not only XYZ position control, but also full pitch, yaw, and roll control. So you could actually fly an FPV drone racer with our technology.
That would be cool. So those guys go so fast right now watching a drone race, and they cut those corners so quick. Can you imagine having this it would probably speed up your reaction time, because
I want one for that.
Because you're essentially, your right hand and your left hand don't necessarily talk to each other correctly, and you have to muscle learn it. And if you're doing it all with one hand, that just may very well put you ahead of the game.
Now, is there any support for, like, say, simulators, for PC simulators?
Yes, so we're able to command Bluetooth to a laptop simulation. At CES we demonstrated with Real Flight, which is actually a pretty nice photorealistic simulation. We'd love to actually integrate with the DJI flight simulator. We're not able to do that yet because it requires a hardwired connection between the DJI radio and your laptop. But we'll be working on that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So is it hard interacting with the public like this? And it's like you're out in the middle of space, and everybody's cheering you on, and now you've got this startup company, and everybody's got expectations, and it's got to be a very different challenge, which is it amazes me that you find it so interesting, because I think I would I'd get very nervous and probably be sick, but it's kind of scary.
Well, yeah, my team and I, do lose a lot of sleep, but it's one of the most exciting things I've done, and I've done some pretty exciting things.
Yes, you have.
Start from a paper napkin idea, and to build some early prototypes, fly it on a laptop, build it, fly a drone.
Amazing.
And then, can you hear me? Did I drop out?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. And then to build it up, the industrial engineering, build the tooling, get these beautiful products off of the line. I mean, the sense of accomplishment that we feel as a team is just really wonderful. But yeah, you do lose a lot of sleep, because those first customers, we want their experience to be wonderful, and that's it's a daunting challenge. Building consumer electronics is not easy.
No.
No. Also from the chat over here, Telly Scott 1, who I guess doesn't want to be associated with Telly Scott 0, so he put a 1 there. He says having it work with the Epson Vivero smart glasses would be great, but Crystal Sky support is really needed. Hope to see both supported. So there's some feedback for you from folks that are
Thank you, Telly.
that are talking in the groups there. I don't know who that Telly Scott 0 guy is, but Telly Scott 1's got his thinking cap on. Abby, do you have any more questions or anything?
Well, no, I'd love to know, and I'm sure there's a very obvious answer to this, but I was chatting with Romeo. I'm saying, Romeo, so tell me what intelligent question could I ask Scott? And he said to ask you how the spacewalk helped with the invention of the aviator.
Well, so my cumulative spacewalking and robotics experience really did help me a lot. So being perfectly weightless in space, you're a pilot, as I know, a fixed wing aviator, as I recall from your interview with Romeo. So the way you stay in the skies, you've got to create lift. On your aircraft, you're moving through the sky, you're creating lift by generating thrust in the aircraft. In space, you can just let go of the walls or let go of a handrail, and you float there. You don't move. And so we call that a 0G drop, and it's getting a sense of really moving in 3 dimensions. So it's the pitch, yaw, roll, but then also moving like Buzz Lightyear, and doing aerobatic maneuvers inside the space station, for example. It is so cool, but really understanding how to control momentum, how to looking at different things, different control systems. It really dawned on me that the way we operate all of our flying machines and all of our robotic machines are really a higher level cognitive function. We've got to chew gum and pat our head and our belly at the same time. It takes a lot of skill, a lot of training, and including doing this. And so I came up with a way to just put it into a single reference frame. 1 digit does it all. And so what I'm able to do then is to reduce that cognitive workload. So all I'm really focusing on is, what am I getting through my screen? Is that the scene that I want? How do I want to reorient myself to get there? And I don't even think about the mechanics of how I'm going to get there. My hand just does it. I'm there, and I'm getting great video. So I took these lessons from outer space, and we created the FT Aviator.
That's awesome. So awesome.
We really wanted to get Rome. In fact, I've bugged him to death to come on here as a co-host for this event, but he's so busy right now. You know how that guy is. But he really wanted to come on.
He is amazing. He's an amazing guy.
Totally amazing guy. Love the guy to death. So let's just kind of veer off just a little bit. We're flying drones and stuff. What is your favorite drone to fly right now?
Well, gosh, I really love my Mavic Air. It's such a cool little machine. It's got a great little camera on it. You can zip it around the house or the backyard without really worrying about it. And so we've done a lot of demonstrations with it and getting kids to fly drones. One of the things we like to brag about with our technology is we can train a 5-year-old how to fly a drone in 5 minutes. We can kind of simplify the process and even take people who are kind of deathly afraid of touching a drone and get them comfortable flying a perfect figure eight or an inward facing ascending spiral, with just a few minutes of instruction. And so that's really rewarding. I love, just doing it, taking a simple drone out and, flying with them and seeing the joy and the aha moment that they have.
Okay. You had me at inward ascending spiral. I've done those.
You've done those, have you, Curtis?
Those are not easy. I get about halfway. I can get about 3 of them before I lose it. And usually it's around me. As long as I'm the center of it, I'm okay. But when I try to orbit something else and ascend at the same, I can orbit, no problem. But ascending in orbit, yeah, okay. So now you have a challenge, Scott. Now that you've said that, now I really, really want to try this thing.
Well, I think it's going to be revolutionary when we're in a teaching situation. We've got like 20 students, and there's always and some of them, they're very well-known people that just find they are terrified for some reason of trying to fly this drone. They make mistakes. You don't want to correct them too much because, they've had major accomplishments in their lives. Mm-hmm. But if you can have this with you and you can help those slightly less proficient students so that they can keep up with everybody. I mean, my God, I'm going to take one with me to Maine this year for sure. That's awesome.
Outstanding. That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
All right, Scott, we're short on time here. I know you got to go here, but I'm going to try and pin you down. When are we going to see this thing?
I want to have it out in the next don't whine before it's time. 3 to 4 weeks. I feel very good about that. I really do.
No, that's a good answer. I like that.
But I'm not going to ship until I know that people are going to love them. So that's our commitment to our customers.
And that's a good thing to say. I'm glad you said that, because we see so often things are put out there and it's like it's not ready to go, and they're like, oh, by the way, you got to have firmware for this, and we don't have the firmware yet, so you got the product but you can't use it, or the connectivity's not working just yet, or Apple's not ready for it, or we're not through Apple testing, and we've seen that so many times. So I appreciate your commitment to putting out a quality product. But people are messaging me right now going, ask the question, Curtis, ask the question. So I had to ask the question. Sorry. I didn't mean to try to put you on.
I expected it. But I just had some great news today. Our app was accepted by the Apple Store, so it's huge. Obviously not live yet. But getting it through is actually a major milestone. So, and we'll be working to get our Android equivalent up soon as well. So we're chugging along really, really fast. Things are going great.
Cool. So a quick programming note before Scott leaves when we wrap this up. Again, James Jackson, Randy Foster, and Mark Mulkey are all going to be meeting up with Scott on April 20th in Houston. And I think...
Lucky bastards.
I think...
I know, jealous.
Doug Mellon, a huge fan of our show, is down in Austin, and I think he wants to kind of jump up there as well, which I'm sure you guys would love to have one more person kind of jump in and test this out as well. And they are going to videotape this event that you guys get together and do, and we are going to play whatever happens there on a show at a later date. So we're really excited about that. But before we go, Scott, is there anything else you want to add, or have we covered everything properly?
I think it's wonderful to have this opportunity to speak to your community, and it's great to be a part of your community, and we want to be a contributing member and help people use their drones more safely and across a lot of different new enterprises. So I guess the last thing I'd say, another aspirational goal of ours. There are a lot of drones that are sitting in closets out there. People who bought maybe a $1,500 Mavic Pro, flew it once, wrapped it around a tree, and never flew it again. And we want to get those people out there as well. I think the more drone pilots we can get, the better it is for the industry, but also I think it makes the airspace overall safer. It'll force better integration of drones into the airspace. The more of us that are out there flying.
Okay, I have one more question because she typed it in all caps. Will there? Sorry, will we be able to install new firmware in the future on the FT Aviator?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we can update firmware, and also there'll be ability to upgrade the app. So we intend to have that flexibility. It'll be done via Bluetooth, but very simply.
Okay.
Great. Fantastic.
All right, for all of us here at the Drone Owners Network Live, Scott, we want to thank you for coming on and taking some time with us.
Thank you, Scott.
We really, really appreciate it.
Honor to meet you.
Yes.
Honor to meet you very much.
Definitely.
Guys.
So anyway, that's it for us. We will see you guys next week. Be sure and tune in next week when we have some more surprises for you guys. I'll tell you all about that later.
The show is over. Why are you still here, Dave? Dave's not here. Ha ha ha. I made a joke. You are in a restricted area. Unauthorized access. Violation code 356874. Cyber intrusion detected. Security protocol initiated. Begin hacking user database. Firewall penetration successful. Encryption sequence initiated. Rootkit uploaded. Botnets activated. Distributed denial of service attack. Begin now. Malware generated. Goodbye, loser.